Welcome to Voice Daily Finance, the most important news personalized for you every day. Supported by Voice.com.
Today we're sharing 3 stories. First, how India's push for E20 ethanol fuel is backfiring, diverting 5.2 million tonnes of rice from food supplies and causing unexpected engine damage for car owners. Second, why Spirit Airlines is warning it may not survive after a $500 million swing from projected profit to massive loss and its failed merger with JetBlue. Third, how a US tariff could spike a bottle of Scotch by $12 and why companies like Diageo are now using AI to navigate the fallout. In a country where 250 million people go hungry, a new government policy is now using food to feed cars. India is pushing a new fuel called E20, a blend of petrol and 20% ethanol. On the surface, it's a massive success, saving the country $1.5 billion in foreign exchange and cutting nearly 70 million tonnes of carbon emissions. However, the core economic argument is starting to crumble. Initially, ethanol was cheaper than petrol, which made sense. But due to rising costs for crops like maize and sugarcane, the procurement price for ethanol has actually become more expensive than refined petrol, which totally undermines the savings argument. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The ethanol-based fuel is sparking outrage. Car owners report lower mileage and engine damage, with one editor calling ethanol more corrosive than petrol. The issue for car owners is that ethanol is more corrosive because it can degrade rubber and plastic components over time. We're talking about things like fuel lines, seals, and gaskets in vehicles that weren't specifically designed for E20 fuel. When those parts fail, it can lead to serious and expensive engine trouble. And crucially, standard insurance policies often won't cover the damage, forcing owners to buy expensive add-on kits. Insurance providers have stated that engine failures from using the wrong fuel could be classified as gross negligence by the owner. This means the financial risk is shifted entirely onto you, the consumer. One driver asked, "Why should I be forced to buy petrol that offers less mileage and then spend more to make the materials compliant?" But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is the impact on the food supply. To produce this ethanol, India is diverting massive amounts of crops. For the first time in decades, the country became a net importer of maize, not for food, but for fuel. The most jaw-dropping number? The government has approved an unprecedented 5.2 million tonnes of rice for ethanol production. To put that in perspective, that single allocation is nearly 9% of the entire global rice trade. This is rice from government stocks, originally earmarked to be given to India's poor at subsidised rates. A farming expert put it bluntly, warning this could lead to an agriculture disaster, stating we cannot use food to feed the cars. The frustration is magnified because, interestingly enough, other options do exist. The world is moving towards second-generation biofuels, which are made from non-food sources like agricultural waste. India generates about 500 million tonnes of this waste every year, a massive untapped resource. But developing this technology is expensive and complex. So for now, the reliance on food crops continues. This all begs the question, what's the real end game here? The government isn't stopping. The petroleum minister recently announced plans to scale up to E25 and even E30 blends. The trade-off is now crystal clear. A greener, more energy independent nation, but at what cost to its food security and its own citizens' wallets? And is it even truly greener? The environmental math gets complicated when you factor in water. Crops like sugarcane and rice are incredibly thirsty. Some studies estimate it takes a staggering 2,800 litres of water to produce just 1 litre of ethanol from sugarcane. In a country already facing water scarcity, you have to wonder if the CO2 savings are worth the strain on its most precious resource. From a government policy with unintended consequences, we now shift to a corporate crisis where the stakes are just as high. Survival itself. Just 5 months after exiting bankruptcy, Spirit Airlines has issued a stark warning that it might not be able to survive another year without a massive cash infusion. The numbers are staggering. In December, the airline filed court documents forecasting a net profit of $252 million for this year. The reality? Since leaving Chapter 11 in March, it has instead lost nearly $257 million. That's a $500 million swing from projection to reality, and Wall Street is reacting. Shares have plummeted close to 58% since the warning. So what went wrong? Industry experts say Spirit exited bankruptcy without making the hard decisions, opting for what some in the industry call a bankruptcy light. The goal was to exit the process as quickly as possible, but this speed meant not addressing the deep underlying financial problems. One attorney involved in the case said the airline didn't use the tools available to them in Chapter 11 to renegotiate crushing aircraft leases or fundamentally change its business. This became a huge problem because the companies that own the planes, the aircraft lessors, are some of the most powerful and invisible players in aviation. A handful of these massive leasing firms own a huge chunk of the global fleet and have immense leverage. When an airline is in trouble, they can decide its fate, and the fallout is spreading. Aircraft lessors are reportedly already reaching out to Spirit's competitors, asking if they would be willing to take any of Spirit's 200 Airbus jets. It's a classic move to protect their multi-billion-dollar assets before an airline potentially goes under for good. But the most chilling warning may be coming from inside the company. The Flight Attendants Union sent a memo to its members stating, Spirit is in a fragile financial position, likely more so than at any point in the previous 24 months. The union urged its crew to assess your financial situation and begin strategizing how best to weather the financial impact. After a failed merger, a botched bankruptcy, and a catastrophic financial miscalculation, the question isn't just if Spirit can raise more cash. It's whether anyone still believes there's a flight plan for survival. Now, get this. This crisis is really a perfect storm created by three distinct factors. First, that failed merger with JetBlue. Federal regulators blocked the $3.8 billion deal, arguing that removing an ultra-low-cost carrier like Spirit would hurt consumers. Data showed that Spirit's presence on a route tends to lower fares by up to 11%. The irony is, in trying to protect consumers, regulators may have pushed a fragile airline closer to the edge. Second, that catastrophic financial miscalculation was fueled by a supply chain crisis. Spirit's fleet relies heavily on engines from Pratt & Whitney. A major defect forced airlines to ground planes for repair. For Spirit, this was a disaster. By the end of this year, around 40 of their planes could be grounded, unable to generate revenue. And finally, this all points to a bigger problem. The entire ultra-low-cost carrier model is being squeezed by rising labour costs and intense fare wars. Spirit's struggle may be a warning sign for the entire budget travel sector. This report is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. Airline stocks are volatile and subject to market risks. Speaking of complex economic pressures, our next story shows how a single government action can cascade through an entire supply chain. A new analysis reveals that US tariffs on European alcohol could spike the price of a single bottle of Scotch at a bar by more than $12. And believe it or not, that $12 jump starts with a seemingly small tariff of less than $2 at the port. Once taxes and margins are added through the supply chain, the cost explodes. For the average drinker, that could mean an extra dollar for every single glass of Scotch. The reason for this price explosion isn't just simple math. It's a legally mandated system called the three-tier system for alcohol, set up right after Prohibition. It forces a product to go from producer to distributor to retailer, with each tier adding its own percentage-based markup. It's a geometric amplification, turning a small fee into a massive hit to your wallet. This isn't just about one Spirit. The levies are targeting $10 billion worth of annual imports, hitting everything from French champagne to Irish whiskey. Major brands like Diageo's, Guinness, and Pernod Ricard's Jameson are caught in the crossfire. What really brought this to a head was seeing how these big companies are using technology to decide their next move. Take Diageo, for example. They are deploying sophisticated AI-powered demand forecasting. These systems analyze everything from sales data to weather forecasts to predict where demand will be strongest. This allows them to decide whether to absorb the cost, pass it on, or reroute shipments entirely. Industry insiders are already sounding the alarm. One trade association chairman stated that while decisions are brand by brand, one thing is certain. If these tariffs remain, the costs will eventually reach the consumer. The analysis shows wholesale prices for wine and spirits could surge by over 80 cents per gallon on average, and the ripple effect goes far beyond the price of a bottle. Local bars and restaurants are getting hit with these higher costs, forcing them to adopt new technology to survive. Reports show 76% of operators now see tech as a critical competitive advantage, pouring money into automation for things like inventory management and staff scheduling. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. This is all happening in a market where US alcohol consumption has already hit a record low, as health-conscious and inflation-weary consumers are already cutting back. So The thing is, this perfect storm of tariffs and changing tastes could be creating a massive opportunity for domestic producers. Some are calling it a geopolitical palette shift. With European spirits getting more expensive, there's a new gap in the market for premium American products. The American single malt whiskey sector, for instance, is projected to double in value to $14 billion by 2031, and some distillers are even using accelerated aging tech to capture those customers who have been priced out of their favourite Scotch. The conflict isn't just about a trade dispute anymore. It's a direct hit on consumer wallets and business bottom lines. And there's one final dangerous consequence to consider. Whenever prices for legitimate luxury goods spike, it creates a powerful incentive for counterfeiters. To fight this, brands are deploying incredible anti-counterfeiting tech like NFC tags in bottle caps and blockchain records to prove a bottle's authenticity. It's a hidden tech war to protect you from fake goods and to protect their brand's reputation.
That's it for today on Voice Daily Finance. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.